Hey everybody, welcome to the GMI Rocket Show. I'm your host, Roman Zelichenko, and today is episode number 71. Um, so I think I was going live here and I was on mute. So I'm going to restart this whole thing. And if you're watching this broadcast live on video, you just saw the behind the scenes. So I'm going to restart that. Okay, cool. Thanks, everybody. I'm seeing the comments coming in that I was on mute. That was totally my bad. And also the fun thing about going live. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the GMI Rocket Show. Today's episode number 71. I'm your host, Roman Zelichenko. I am a former immigration attorney turned entrepreneur. I'm the founder of Laborless, which is an immigration tech startup that automates H-1B visa compliance, and also the co-founder of founder of GMI Rocket, which is a digital marketing agency for the immigration space that also brings you this show. So today I'm really excited to bring Sergio Torres, who is the co-founder and CEO of Alvva. So Alvva is a FinTech company that helps immigrants gain access to financial resources to pay for things like applying for their immigration benefits. We're going to get into this during the conversation, but immigrants tend to be underserved by the financial services sector. In the U.S., it's hard to get a loan. It may be hard to get a credit card, et cetera. And so that makes it difficult to pay for things that they may not have, let's say, the cash for. So Alvva is trying to solve that problem. We're going to learn all about Sergio's life and his background, his career in the financial services sector, and of course, how he came to start Alvva and what the company does today. So without further ado, Sergio, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. And I'm really excited to dig into this, in part because we've had a lot of guests on the show who do immigration tech from like the case management legal side of things, but it's really good and important to remember that the immigration journey is not just the visa. It's once you settle here, what all the services and support you need. So I love what you're doing, and I'm excited to learn more.
Yeah, thank you, Roman, for having me on the show. It's great to be on and to share a little bit more about what we're doing.
So you are based in California. You're in San Diego, and I know we talked a little bit about this before. You were born in the U.S., but you have this like really interesting, colorful kind of sort of immigrant, not immigrant family, and you live on a border town. And I'm in New York City. I was born in Ukraine, but I grew up in kind of this American world in an immigrant household, but like I'm very much in the Northeast. You grew up on the border of US and Mexico. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how did your family find their way to San Diego, and a little bit of the background there?
Yeah, actually, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Cool.
Yeah, I've been here for more than 10 years. I currently live in San Mateo, which is a little bit south of the city. I graduated from the city once I had a family. So, but now I live here. But yeah, I did grow up in the San Diego, Tijuana area in Southern California. And I grew up in Tijuana, which is probably the largest border crossing in the world. And, for us and a lot of people that live in the region, Tijuana is part of San Diego. and the other way around. The community is interconnected in a lot of ways. And, family originally came from central Mexico from, I guess, 4 grandparents. And, they moved to Tijuana because it's an area with a lot of opportunity, a lot of growth. Actually, I meet a lot of people here in the United States that are immigrants, and they have a lot of family members in Tijuana and in that region that, I guess moved away, but they didn't come to the U.S. So yeah, that's a little bit about like where I grew up and that area.
And you talked a bit too about I found this really interesting about this idea of like, so your grandfather, I guess, on your father's side, you were saying his family, his wife, your grandmother came to Tijuana to give birth to your father, you mentioned, basically. But like the idea is that they had a business. I mean, he was an entrepreneur, it sounds like, and had a business on the Mexico side of the border. And I love that, again, because as a U.S. immigration lawyer, my mind, I have the shutters on, the blinders on is what I wanted to say. That where it's like, okay, everyone's coming to the U.S. I help process the U.S. immigration visas. Best country in the world. Everyone wants to be here. It's not that that's not true, but it's good to remember that, like, even if you're so close to America, not everyone necessarily, there's business opportunities, there's life opportunity elsewhere in Canada and Mexico, and the same for around the world. So I love that sort of concept, that we have to respect the fact that, people choose to live in America sometimes out of desperation, and sometimes because like it was convenient, but they had a wonderful life back home too, for whatever reason.
Oh yeah, definitely. And so all my 4 grandparents grew up in central Mexico, rural Mexico, along the Pacific side, and they all moved to the state where Tijuana is, which is Baja California. Just Lower California in Spanish. And to in search of opportunities, really. They, like I said, they have family that actually moved to the United States, and my grandparents on my dad's side, that's where they met. And my dad had several siblings. Some of them were born in Tijuana, and then my dad and some of his other siblings were born in San Diego. And it was more about access to healthcare. It is more about that rather than maybe some plan about like getting access to benefits or something else, right? My grandparents thankfully had a very nice life in Tijuana, where they had started a business that was blossoming, and everything was there, right? They didn't need anything else. And like I said, we kind of see it as one big community. You did have to, obviously cross the border, but especially back then, and even when I went to high school, it was just like, I'm a U.S. citizen. All right, come in. Obviously, after 9/11, everything changed. But, that was how that dynamic worked. And to your point, there's opportunity in a lot of places. It could be in the United States and some parts of the United States. It could be in Canada. It could be northern Mexico. Really, what people want is an opportunity, right? And the U.S. is great at doing that for most people. It's harder for others, but that's why a lot of people want to move to the U.S. because it's actually branded, right? It's marketed as the land of opportunity. So, but opportunities are in a lot of places as well.
Yeah, it's just a good reminder. I mean, obviously, this is the best country in the world. I could definitely agree with that. Cool. So you were born in San Diego. It sounds like your life was kind of on the border, where you did spend some time in Mexico and Baja California, and then obviously in like northern Upper California.
Yeah.
What was it like kind of growing up there? Did you grow up in the San Diego area? And I mean, like, are you fluent in Spanish? Like how does it work when you're on the border town and your family is kind of mixed in that way?
Yeah, so I grew up in Tijuana, so that like
Okay.
my parents, I only know one house since I was, as far as I can remember, and my parents still live there. It's on a hill. You can see it from San Diego, and vice versa. From my parents' house, you could see downtown San Diego. So that's where I grew up. In our household, we spoke Spanish. We speak Spanish. Even now, me and my wife, and we speak Spanish in our house. But I grew up in sort of like a bicultural region where really like what I liked growing up was watching baseball, watching the Padres, and you would get the telecast in English, watching shows and Saved by the Bell. That's we actually got those channels right in Tijuana, so that's what I would watch, and that's how I became sort of I was able to speak English. And we were, over the weekends, we would go and watch movies and go to the movie theater. But really no proper like English classes. It was more about like consuming entertainment in English. That's how I was able to learn the language.
Yeah, I feel like so many people learn that way. Even as adults, you can watch cartoons in other languages and sort of follow along.
Yeah.
So I know you went to university in Mexico, but did you go to high school there as well? I mean, was it your whole kind of young adult life and career?
Mhm. So actually, I went to high school in San Diego, and had the opportunity to go to a school there, a private school there, and I actually did sophomore year to senior year, because it doesn't align perfectly with like the system in Mexico. So I did 3 years of high school in San Diego, and then just decided to do college, to go to college in Mexico, just because that was what I was more familiar with. Only 3 years of my education was in the United States,
Mhm.
and my grades were okay, but I could go to one of the best schools in Mexico, or go to maybe like a state school in the United States, or a good school, but not like one of the best ones. It's not like I could go to like Harvard or Stanford or anything like that. So yeah, I decided to go to Monterrey, which is a great school in Mexico, and also like most of our friends, like probably all my friends went there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big reason why I ended up going to school in Mexico.
And when you were attending university in Mexico, was the thought that you will eventually work full, like after graduation, you would move to the U.S. to work, or were you not thinking that way? Because it sounds like clearly most of your life has been in Mexico. Your family has business opportunities there. It's not like, yeah. What were your thoughts at that time?
Yeah, actually, that's funny. That's a funny question, because no, when I went to school, my plan was to go back to Tijuana and work for the family business. That was it. There's nothing else. And maybe I'd work at a few places, or experience something else. But that was always my plan.
And so now the question, of course, is, well, then how did you end up? Well, actually, let me ask you this: what was the family business? If you can share a little bit about it, I'm curious.
Yeah, my grandfather, he when he moved to Tijuana, if I get the story straight, he started working at a pharmacy, and from there he had the opportunity to open his own pharmacy, and he did. And as his business started growing, he's like, I need a supplier. And there was no major suppliers, so he started a drug supplier business, a distribution company, and he was able to grow that business. And then my father took over the pharmacies. So yeah, that was a business, and that's a bit that a lot of people obviously what's FDA is not Mexico has its own FDA, and there's some drugs that you can buy in Mexico that you can't buy in the US, and vice versa. So a lot of people just go to Tijuana to get access to drugs they need that maybe they can't have in the US. So yeah, I mean, if you cross the border you'll see drugstore
Right.
everywhere.
That's
But
fascinating. So he
yeah,
kind of like vertically integrated on his own. Like he said, okay, well, I have this pharmacy, I have the consumer side of things. I need a supplier. We're the suppliers. Okay, no
yeah,
suppliers. So he sounds like a very entrepreneurial, like, he saw an issue and he built a business around solving that issue.
yeah. I mean, he did. I wish I would have sat down more with him.
Mm-hmm.
Which like just one time after I graduated from school, like I I went to his office that he had back then, and I said, what's the secret of success? What's the secret sauce? What's the tip? And he said, trabajo. He said work. And I'm like, oh, that's disappointing. I thought you were gonna like give me like the real formula. And I didn't realize that at the time, as I my career sort of evolved, I sort of looked back and said, I get it. Um, so, anyways, I wanted to share that.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. It also is a nice reminder that there is no shortcut necessarily. If you want success, you have to put in the work. That's the formula.
Yeah, I mean, consistent work, every day, bringing it. I think that's a recipe of success, and there's no shortcut, unfortunately.
Or better or worse. I suppose if you love the work that you do, then it makes it even more fun to actually go in every day and work and hustle. So I want to move into a little bit about kind of how you found yourself in the U.S. and started your career in financial services, because of course that is the seed. It sounds like, alongside, of course, your life in the immigrant community, of what will eventually become Alvva. I do want to take a quick pause and say, for anyone who's watching live, first of all, thank you for being here. Second of all, give yourself a shout out, leave a comment, tell us, where you are, who you are, say hello. And obviously ask us any questions, especially as we get into Sergio's life and career and what Alvva does. Right now we had a few comments earlier, but that was all about people not being able to hear me. So if folks want to share some other comments or just drop their name and get a shout out, please do so. So Sergio, how did you then manage to come to the US, and why financial services?
So right when I was graduating from school, the business started, encountering some challenges, and the business had to be shut down. So for me, it was like, all right, I thought I was going to do this. Now, like, what's my plan, right? So I looked for jobs in the area, but as I tried different things out and things progressed, I realized that, what, I just want to get out. I think it's good for me to get out and actually move to the US. I'm a citizen, I'm college educated, I speak English well. I think I'll be able to thrive, which wasn't the case initially. Like, it's so hard to come and just get a job. It's not like Chase is going to hire you, or like these big companies are going to hire you. You basically have no connection. You didn't go to school here. You don't have access to a lot of the resources that people have. People don't recognize your background. So for me, my opportunity was getting a job selling auto insurance for $12 an hour at a strip mall in Chula Vista. And I said, all right, I got to start somewhere. I got to work. And I did that. And it's that was the opportunity, right? And auto insurance is sort of, financial services. And that's how I started. And it was a CSR, selling auto insurance, but quickly, I was given the responsibility to sort of grow the footprint of this auto insurance company, and that sort of like got me on my way. And like, one of the interesting things was that I was opening offices, like office locations for them in California, so I would move around a lot. And that was a great opportunity for me to just like work in different environments, from like San Diego border town, and then move to the Coachella Valley, which is like people recognize for the festival, but it's an agricultural area. There's a lot of tourism and service industry there, and there's a lot of Hispanics working there. And then I moved to sort of east of LA. Then I moved to the Central Valley, which also agricultural, largely Hispanic, and then ended up in the Bay Area. So that's how I got started in financial services. And I guess my benefit and my advantage was that I was bilingual. And California is, basically bilingual, most of it, and I was able to use that as a benefit and as a tool, so I can just offer a value add to any company.
Did you start noticing in that early period of time that so you were selling car insurance? Were you noticing that folks that were maybe immigrants, especially if they're recent immigrants, that they were ineligible? Like, was there any sort of connection there at the time of the services that your company was selling and the demographic, i.e. some of these folks who may have been immigrants, and the problem that you're currently solving with Alvva?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the customers that we served, and this company, Fred Loya Insurance, was sort of a pioneer where typically if you didn't have a U.S. driver's license, like you were penalized for that. If someone is able to underwrite you, you were penalized and you were charged, a good overcharge or whatnot. And this company started saying, like, just because you don't have a license doesn't mean like you're a bad driver.
Mm-hmm.
So
a US license, so you might have a license from
exactly.
Mexico, I guess. Yeah,
exactly. So this company took those, and we were able to underwrite folks that were being rejected by other insurance carriers. So that was like pretty interesting, and I started seeing, obviously a need of people coming to us, and then they might have been paying like broker fees to other insurance companies. But like one of the things that I saw was that a lot of people go get insurance after they buy a car. So it's like first thing you do, or even before you buy a car, right? You sign your bill of sale or your sort of like the yellow sheet, and they say you need insurance before I can give you the car. So they go and they come to the auto insurance office, and they get insurance. So you're able to see what was the vehicle worth, what's the year, make, and the model, what interest rate they're paying it, and over how many years. So man, I just started seeing some stuff that was appalling, like people financing a car that was say 10 years old back then, over 6 years, paying more than double of what the vehicle's worth as that asset depreciates. And a lot of people would get the car, and then they would come to us and say, you got to pay $150 a month, to cover the vehicle in case it's stolen. And I would see their faces, and they would be like, "Oh, screw! I did not think of that, and this is really gonna screw my finances." So that's when I said, like, man, there's gotta be something out there, just like education or access to better rates. But I was able to see how really how people take advantage of someone's situation to really overcharge them. And that's why a lot of people within, say Impact Financial Services, they say it's expensive to be poor. And it really is. Like, it's a hole, and the system's designed to just like keep you there and have you pay more, fees over here, check cashing fee over here, more interest over here, et cetera, et cetera. So, that's where I was able to have a clear picture of like what was going on.
It's so important, and I think the lack of education is probably a really large gap. That if people at least knew that this was the case, they could seek out, if there are better options, they can seek them out. But if they don't know, I always think about, like, who's going to walk down the street and just walk into a law firm office or a medical office. But if you move to a country and you have no resources, you may not know the language. Maybe you're not technologically savvy. You don't know how to use, Yelp or Google to at least get some information. You go outside, you see it says, abogado or whatever, and you go in, and the hope is that those professionals are good and honest and fair, but that's not, unfortunately, always the case. And so, the informational aspect of it is definitely really important, an educational aspect. After you were at that organization, I know you then spent basically another 10 years, not in the auto insurance industry, but more of, I guess, regular traditional financial services. It sounds like you were starting to see this sort of issue, or this, I don't want to say, but perhaps predatory nature of some of these aspects. Did you continue to see more of that as you worked and, as you moved around and continued to grow professionally in the financial industry?
Absolutely. After being in auto insurance, that was great, and it was a great experience for me. But ultimately, if you need auto insurance, there's like 100 companies. So I really I felt like I could have a bigger impact, and just Googling, I think, like LinkedIn back in the day, I think I just typed in something like, Hispanic or Spanish, and then financial. And then, sort of like the first thing that popped up was this company that was starting out here in the Bay Area called Progresivo Financiero, which translated means, financial progress. And they're offering credit building loans to the Hispanic community. And after seeing what I saw, within 1 second, I felt connected to what they were doing. And then I was like, all right, how do I get a job there? So I went to the website, saw their careers page. None of like my background fit what they were looking for, but they had careers at, and I just sent them an email with my resume. And, luckily enough, the next day they reached out to me. After a few months, they ended up, giving me a job offer. Wow. And, I moved to the Bay Area and, started working at this company, which is now publicly traded. They rebranded as Opportune, and, they've done great work in the community.
Can I ask you, do you remember, or as much as you can remember, what did you write in that email? Because I feel like that's one of those stories where, you must have said something that really, really resonated with them. Maybe I'm cynical, and I always feel like, when the careers page says, hey, if you don't see anything, but you want to work here, email us. I always assume that's just, they have to put it, but they're never going to reply to you unless there's something really compelling. So I don't know. Do you remember what you shared with them? Was it what you shared here, where, it's like you saw what was happening and you believed in their mission?
Man, I'd love to remember what I put in, but obviously, I can look it up. Yeah, I don't remember, but it was something about the mission and being connected to the mission. So, if there's an organization that you're interested in, they're mission driven, your number one, your argument, or your if you want to get a job there, it's like, I believe in your mission, and I share that mission with you. Because all these organizations, they're not looking like, hey, I want to hire for the top 1% of talent, or whatnot. The way how you build great organizations is by everyone sharing the same mission, right? Everyone's different and have different backgrounds and different personalities. But if you all believe in the same thing, wholeheartedly, that's going to be a better place to work at. So I think once I reached out and said something, I think along those lines, they reached back out, and also they needed someone with my background, and for some reason it wasn't on the jobs page. So don't assume that people are updating that. It's like it might not be updated, or someone had just quit and they haven't updated it. people change jobs, especially more nowadays.
That's great advice. Great
So
advice.
take your shot.
Yeah, I love it. So you spent you said it was the company is called Progresivo.
Progreso Financiero.
Progreso
It's
Financiero.
now called Opportune, and
Opportune.
like I said, they're a publicly traded company.
And so can you talk a little bit about, maybe some of the work that you did there, especially because now obviously this is not just financial services, it's financial services with a cause, right? So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I mean, the product was a installment loan. I think when I started, it was like $300 to $2,500, and you did not need credit to qualify for a loan, which was life changing, sort of game changing back then, because the system has always been built in a way where it's like you need to have credit in order to get credit, right? And the only solutions back then were like, you get a prepaid or like a secured credit card, or like you get, if you're a student, you get an auto loan, I'm sorry, a student loan, or you get on your parents' like credit card or whatnot. So that's how like people typically build credit. But through our loans, people were able to, as they made repayments, they were able to build credit. And this was back in the like early 2010s. So online was a sort of online V2 or web V2 was like starting to grow after the .com bust. So but our presence was our business was brick and mortar locations, and that was, I think that was very important for the growth of that company, because as you may know, and I think I've heard this here, like you got to establish trust with immigration and financial services. And if you're right there and you've got a storefront and people see someone and they see that person every 2 weeks, that's super helpful. But if you're online, sort of your barrier to earning trust is super high. But my job there was to grow their retail footprint. So when I started, we had like 37 locations. There was somebody else, a great colleague, who was doing that on her own, and she needed help, and that's why I was hired. We were in California and Texas. So it's basically like look for new markets, look for new locations, new partnerships where you can co-locate. So, I traveled probably 50% of my time to within California, Texas, and then, led the effort to expand into Illinois. Chicago is huge, and a lot of people, that live there are immigrants or second generations, third generation from everywhere in the world. And then places like Las Vegas, and Nevada, etc. So that was my job, and I think when I left, we had 160 locations, and a lot of those were replacements for the 37 where I started, because they're basically like pretty old, and we just needed a bigger location because we had a lot of people coming in and making payments. Right, they would come in every 2 weeks to make payments, which was another like revolutionary thing in a way that this company did was, hey, you get paid every 2 weeks. Why are you making payments every month? You should make it easier for you and put you in the spot where you could be more successful to repay your loan. So every 2 weeks, someone would come in and pay their $40, right, towards their loan.
That's so cool. It's really nice because you think there's a lot of business gurus and coaches out there, for good reason, talking about, well, if you want to grow your business, focus on higher margin clients, more clients that will pay you more money, etc. But all businesses can't just move in the direction of having premium products. People are, across the spectrum, and we need to, we need services and companies that support everybody. Which, by the way, somebody could start out only being able to pay $40 every 2 weeks. And because of, to your point, America being the land of opportunity, give them 10 years and they will be a premium, client because they've grown, they
Yeah.
went to school, they built a company, whatever. Why not support people throughout their entire journey?
Definitely. And then, this company has done that. Now they offer loans up to $20,000. They have a credit card. They just bought a digital bank. It's like you do something, very niche really well, and that opens up the door for you. It's not always like upselling. Um, that's not the only way to build like a sustainable business.
Definitely. I love it. That's so cool. So I know that before, so you started, this was your second job, sort of in the financial industry. Then you
Mhm.
spent 5 years at another company before you ended up launching Alvva. So can you talk just briefly? I mean, we don't have to
Yeah,
go
yeah,
into the whole thing,
yeah.
but just briefly about the last job that you had. Because I particularly want to get to that point where you said, for whatever reason, right?
Mhm.
I want to go and start my own business. I have this idea. I have the
Mhm.
vision. So can you talk a little bit about that last job that you had, and then we'll get to the transition of where you ended up launching Alvva.
Mhm. Yeah, so I was at Opportune, and then actually the founder of that company founded this other company called Aura. And then one day I just like turned around and I saw that all the people that I really enjoyed working with, or some of the people that I enjoyed working with, had moved on to this like new company. So I'm like, I think I want to do that. But like, I decided to take a quick break and see, like, do I really want to do that? That's like, I invested 5 years in this. Is there something else? Ultimately, I ended up joining that company. The business model was different. So instead of us having a brick and mortar locations, we partnered with financial institutions that were already serving the community in a different way. So a lot of immigrants send money back home to their family to support them, to their parents or to their kids, maybe their spouse. They're here working in the United States, and they do that. That's a big reason why they come, and a lot of them just might come for like 10 years and be enough to build a house in Mexico or somewhere else. It's not always to stay here. Some people want to move back, but anyways, we partnered with companies like that people used to send money abroad, and it was a perfect fit, right? Because they needed access to capital and to build credit as well. So I worked in the partnerships team and ended up leading that side of the organization. So we had over 100 partners across the United States and different states. And it was a great opportunity. It was more of a tech-driven, even though like both were tech-driven, but this is like almost like an online product that was leveraged in retail, but then also like online, we had a direct-to-consumer, etc. But sort of like a V2 for me. It's sort of the same thing, but
Mm-hmm.
it really afforded me the opportunity to continue learning about financial services, and then to also get to know different players that serve the immigrant community. So that was like super interesting.
And so it sounds like that's the solution that you maybe were thinking about when you first started in car insurance, right? Where you saw immigrants being taken advantage of, sort of, right, from like a financial standpoint, to purchase cars and whatnot. And now you're at this company that's doing that. So I'm curious, you obviously went off to launch your own business, which is,
Yeah.
I don't care how good your idea is. I don't care how much industry experience you have. It is not easy to start a business, right? So there must have been something inside of you that said, all right, this is all great. I like the people I work with. I like the founder at this
Yeah.
company I'm at, but I want to do something myself. So how did you come to that? What sort of brought you to that place?
Yeah. So the pandemic helped, and it well, obviously it didn't help because for our business we were growing a lot and we were at a point where we needed capital, like right when the pandemic hit, and that put us like in like that set us back so much that really it was sort of like a slow and steady decline towards shutting our doors. So the business ended up closing at the beginning of 2021, end of
Wow.
2020, and we knew that that was a possibility, and a few of us said, let's try to make this work. And there was a lot of like great signs. like let's not look for an opportunity. Let's try to see what happens. And it was like one day to the other. Sort of the decision was made, and we had like no other options. So for me, it's like, all right, what do I do now? And that's not great, to sort of like lose your job and then lose the like you know a place where like you enjoyed friends as well, and product that you believed in, and like we had so much potential. Like it was sort of difficult, but it's also like a new opportunity to say like, all right, you know what do I want to do? And you can't take those opportunities for granted. So for me, it was, I always wanted to start my own business, or start a business with somebody else. I felt like that's in my blood, in a way. And but I needed to have the conviction, right? It's not like starting a business for a business. And funny, one of the things that happened when I was at this company was that since we had a partnership model, a few immigration attorneys approached us and they said, hey, a lot of people come to us, they're eligible to get lawful status, they're eligible to get permanent green card for a family member, the DACA status, citizenship, but they can't afford it. We're talking about thousands of dollars. Like, it's really expensive. Immigration has, it's not like you're eligible and then that's it. You need access to resources and you need access to capital. So they said, our a lot of our clients don't have enough money saved, or don't have access to credit. So why don't we partner? You give them the money that they need. They're able to work with us. We're able to have a bigger impact. And then you've got a customer that you can continue serving, right? It made a lot of sense, right? And I was able to learn a little bit more. I also grew up in the border. So I always hear people like, oh, she's in, she's in San Diego because she can cross the border because, she applied for a green card, or, stuff like that. You always hear. So that, once this happened, that stuck with me. We had never ended up doing anything meaningful along those lines. We did launch a partnership with a like a superstar immigration attorney in Miami, but it didn't work out for a few reasons. But I knew why it didn't work, so I'm like, I think I can do something. I could build something that really helps everyone. And I sort of like, I said, yeah, and I feel really passionate about this. So I started talking, like I reached back out, to this immigration attorney, like one of the immigration attorneys that approached us and said, hey, I've got this experience. I could probably, put a team together and start working on this. Like, would you be interested? I'm like, yeah, like nothing has changed since like we last spoke. And we want to do something for our customers. And obviously for us, right? Because ultimately, they're immigration attorneys. They're not, they're not, they're not billers and collectors, and the more time that they spend on their craft, then that's what's better for them, right? And knowing the space more, like a lot of the businesses, the immigration tech businesses, are meant to do that, to allow them, to free them up to do what they do best.
It's cool too, because a lot of times throughout the immigration process, the applicant gets to really know and trust their immigration attorney. I mean, they know all of their information. They ask them questions about their background, their family. And so it's very natural for somebody who's applying for some sort of a status to go to their immigration attorney and ask them for other help. They maybe they don't know that the lawyer can't help, or maybe they do, but they're thinking, well, this is an American attorney. They have a network. They must be able to help me with X and Y and Z. And I'll tell you, we do take for granted the fact sometimes that, maybe I went to school here, I went to law school, I do have, but as an immigration lawyer, your thought isn't, how can I build out a network of other services to help my client? You typically don't think that way. You learn about the law, to your point, you do your craft. And so having these partnership deals is really interesting. I mean, in fact, honestly, that's one of the big reasons that I love really having someone like you on the show, because, my network is immigration attorneys. My audience very often is immigration attorneys. And sometimes some of them may not realize that there are services like this that exist, that, aren't just kind of a traditional bank to go get a loan. It's a company that understands the journey, the process of immigration, and is there to help the immigration lawyers' clients in the best possible way. It's interesting how much how much lack of sort of bridge building there is sometimes in the industry. And so my hope is always to build some of those bridges. So I love the fact that you do that, and that you built that bridge kind of by mistake, that the lawyer came to you and you thought, interesting, right? This is something that we can do.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I mean, I wouldn't blame them. I try to, they're busy. Immigration attorneys are busy. I was meeting with customers. They're working on an application or writing a paper. They're busy. So, and that's what they do. One of the things that I've noticed is, I know there's some conferences, but and there's a platform like this, which I'm so thankful, but technology could be leveraged in such a way that could benefit everyone, right? And it seems like it's sort of early stage, but I'm interesting with everything that I'm bullish with everything that I've been seeing in the space, right? If we get together, we could do something where it's everyone benefits.
Totally, I completely agree. So, can you talk a little bit about what Alvva does? So we now know how you got here, and obviously the motivation, the why. How does Alvva work? How do you approach clients? Talk a little bit about the company.
Yeah, so we actually, so this was in early last year, where I decided to start the company, and I started doing a lot of due diligence, right? As they're really in need. So I called 50 immigration attorneys across the country and sort of as a customer, say hey, I have a fiance. I'd like to get a green card for her. But I don't make a lot of money, or I don't have money saved. Could we do something? And yeah, there's some flexibility there, but no one really was able to do anything for me. So that's when, sort of realized that there was a big need here, and a big opportunity. Started putting a team together that was working on the technology around the summer, and then licensing. Lending is highly regulated, and there's a lot of laws and regulations that you need to be very diligent and knowledgeable about, which is something that I bring with my experience. So we ended up getting approved for a license in November of last year in California, lending license in California, and we launched in December. So we had our product, which was an installment loan to help pay for USCIS filing fees. So it's not sort of a comprehensive product currently, where you finance all the components, which could be, if you have legal assistance from an immigration attorney, or if you're using, a TurboTax for immigration company, there's still something that you need to pay there. This is just for the filing fees, and for family-based immigration applications, like a petition, like an adjustment of status, like removal of conditions, the renewal for green card, citizenship, and DACA, new and renewal. So we launched with that product here in California, and we're working with we started working with two organizations in California. This immigration attorney in San Diego, which had reached out to our previous company, and then a great nonprofit in another area in Northern California, in the Salinas Valley. So this is a starting point for us. As a credit company, you need to, or lending company, you need to make sure that people are going to pay you back. Because if people don't pay you back, then you don't have a business, and if you have this great mission, it doesn't matter. Because then you're not going to be able to fulfill that mission. Mm-hmm. So we start intentionally with the filing fees, because there's currently no solution for that. Some immigration attorneys have some flexibility for their customers. They say, pay $1,000 and then, make 3 payments, right? Or give me 50% and then the other 50% once I send your application over. So there's some flexibility there, but for the filing fees, they're like, figure it out.
Pay them. You have
figure
to
it out. Yeah, you figure it out, right? So that's where we started, but we're currently working on our product. So we have, sort of our second version of this loan, which takes into account the service fees or the lawyer fees that people have to pay, which in most cases is more than the filing fees. Yeah. So that's a bigger component, and obviously there's a big need not only from the customer, but then theoretically, if the high cost barrier is reduced via a payment plan that we can design, then these organizations are going to be able to have a bigger impact, right? Because then people won't have to wait, people won't have to put it on, this process off, which happens a lot. There's a lot of data out there that shows how much people actually wait or don't move through a process because they can't afford it.
And the idea, I guess, right now is that a lot of immigration lawyers, or there are immigration lawyers who will put a client on a payment plan, but that's only for the actual law firm fee. They don't, and it makes sense. They don't do the government filing because effectively that would, that has to be done. That there's no negotiating with the government on that one. So with Alvva, if they work with a lawyer, that it gives them or allows them to take out or to have a payment plan for the legal service, they can have that. And then they can also work with you on a payment plan for the filing fee. And so together they effectively, at least in that scenario, they can have 2 payment plans, a manageable, cumulative, let's say monthly, biweekly, whatever payment, and then they can move forward with their immigration application.
Correct. And even explaining, the differences of the cost is confusing. Okay, we're going to get a green card for your spouse or fiance, but you need to pay me this, you need to pay that. She needs to take a medical exam. She needs to, travel to the embassy. It's all right, all in all, this is how much it is. And you can make a single payment, over X amount of installments. And then, it's much easier for everyone.
What can you talk a little bit about the technology? Because I understand the business model, right? And I understand where the value is for your target client, for these immigrants trying to file for immigration, some sort of immigration relief. What is the tech? Is it the platform through which they apply for their loan? Is it some sort of what's the tech side of things?
So there's basically 2 major tech areas, I would say, within our product. And the first one is the application, where you're ingesting data from the customer, whether it's their personal information, but then also documents, and then you are making a decision, right? And what's going to happen if there's a loan offer, there's different, there's a variance between interest rates, so the decisioning, and then also once the loan offer is approved, signing the loan documents, and then we also give our customers free credit education, and we try to go above and beyond in our transparency because we recognize that this might be the first time that they have access to credit. So we separate everything, this is your payment, each one of their payments, what the finance charge is, how much they're paying in interest, so there's an administrative fee, and we explain everything. Once they sign the loan agreement, we give them access to a credit education content that we put together that we hope to iterate on and make it a lot more interactive, and actually even share the credit data that we pull to them, kind of like how you do with Credit Karma and such. So that's one component. The other one is it's basically on the back end, but once the loan is signed, a technology to calculate interest rates and collect payments and I'll do all these things that basically for the borrower, as long as they see that information, they're able to interact with it. That's what they need. It's more of like on the back end, really, where it's like you make sure that works, and that's got to work really well. Because I said this is like highly regulated. But for the customer, it's really that that application it matters, right? Because maybe there's a digital barrier there, or the education barrier. So that's why we tend to invest more on the application than on the back end.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, the way that they interact with it, you want to make sure they understand the question, they're giving the right information, et cetera, et cetera. That's really cool. And I guess, from a COVID standpoint, the world's opening back up again. I mean, how have you guys been doing? Are you seeing people coming in? Are you seeing immigration tick up and, usage increase? Like, I guess, what are you looking forward to kind of now that we're in almost mid 2022? What are you looking forward to with Alvva, but then more generally, I guess, with just immigration increasing, hopefully?
So, I mean, we were live like a few months. It's for early stage. So I wouldn't be able to compare it to anything else, but I think people are leveraging, online more than ever. So looking for educational resources, or at least start, although, we are an online company, but, I think that, as a company starts, it needs to start like in real life. So we've been out there a lot in these communities and talking to people, and we see, one of the things that we've seen is a huge barrier of like, all right, where do I start? I may be eligible. Like I have a kid who's now like U.S. citizen who's like older than 21, and they have these questions, but like, where do I start? So I think that addressing that, I think is going to be helpful. But I think to answer your question, I think we're the world in especially this demographic has advanced and is a little bit more digital, but there's still a huge digital barrier. So we see ourselves as trying to be out there in the community, and we envision having like community managers where we talk to organizations and we go to events and we put together like seminars. Where people can, at least take the first step, right? At least take the first step. But we see that as important. So trying different things out, really. As you start, you try different things out. You think you have an idea. It's like, oh, I have this product, and I'm gonna have to have a wait list because everyone's gonna want it. But it's not. It doesn't turn out that way. There's a lot of you think everything's gonna go how you planned it, but usually, one of our investors said, just whatever you think, it's gonna take twice as long. So it's like, he's pretty smart.
That's solid advice, and I have learned that myself the hard way of lowering expectations of how quickly things move. That's really cool. Well, Sergio, I'd like to try to end these on kind of maybe a fun or different or interesting note. You said you traveled around the country, for some of your previous jobs. Any particular cities or towns stand out to you that you were delighted, like you thought it would be boring or just in the middle of nowhere, but ended up being a really memorable experience?
That's an interesting question. I never think it's going to be boring. Although I wasn't too excited to go to Corpus Christi, and I think it was validated once I was there. But Houston was never a place where I enjoyed going. But if you see if you're a fan of Bourdain, if you see his Parts Unknown episode, that was probably the best episode. Where it talks about like the fabric of the city and how many immigrants end up there from like Vietnam and Africa and Mexico, etc. So it's like very inspiring. But I think my biggest surprise, not because it was I just like love going to Chicago. It's just like I fell in love with the place, and you see it as like, it's a great town. Like it's a great town. But once you start getting to know the neighborhoods, it's great. Like, there's this area called Little Village, which has now been rebranded to La Villita, which is it's mostly Mexican community there. And I kid you not, I probably had the best carnitas I've ever had, right on 18th Street. It was amazing. It was like probably
Wow.
in the minus free, and then you get into this room where it's just like you smell the mist of like the pork frying, and like it is something else. But I think everywhere that I've been to has been quite an experience, and it's all about like meeting people and getting to know folks that live in these places. So yeah, I guess Chicago, which is
That's awesome. I love Chicago. I was just there a week or so ago, and yeah, the different communities are really distinct, and the food was incredibly good. Now you're making me want to go back out there. I've been only back off the road about a week, and I want to get back out.
Yeah, nice.
Well, Sergio, thank you so much. This has been awesome. It's been a real pleasure, learning about you and obviously about Alvva, and I'm excited to continue to follow the company and watch your growth and your expansion. I think this is I can appreciate this as attacking a very niche problem and doing it really well. It's what we do with Laborless, and I think it's important because a lot of times if you try to go too broad, you end up missing things, and then it doesn't create as best of an experience as it can. And so I think this is a really awesome what you're doing. So thank you for being here. Best of luck. And I'm definitely excited to maybe have you on again as you guys, get into the next stages of the business.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for having us. I'm super interested in like, this space. Like we see ourselves as newcomers. We come from, financial background and, yeah, we come from that background. But if you think about it, like a loan application is not too different from an immigration application, where you collect a lot of data and you kind of get to a decision if you're approved or not approved. Hopefully with immigration, it's 100% approved. Loan, you can't always if you want to build a business. But like one of the things that I'm taking a look at is like we in finance, you can get bureau data, you can get payroll data, you can get bank data. And just like, I think that there's a lot of alignment there. And I wonder how you can leverage all that data to build kind of like an easier application. But that's not our priority. And like I said, we're newbies and we want to work with people that have done this for a long time and see where, how we can help, immigrants. That's ultimately like our goal. And yeah, thank you for putting this community behind. And if anyone wants to reach out, like I'd love to chat to anyone.
Your information will be or is in the show notes in the description, your website, your LinkedIn profile. So I definitely encourage, especially the immigration lawyers who this is interesting to, who may have clients who may need some financial support, especially for the applications, the government filing fees, to definitely reach out to you.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Roman.
Awesome. Thank you, Sergio.
Okay. Thanks.
Awesome. What a great story. And I think inspiring to think about all the ways that we can use technology and continue to help immigrants in new ways, not just in the legal immigration process, but in also everything else that comes before. So paying for it and after. So, supporting immigrants even after they get their status. So to me, immigration tech is all of it, which is really exciting and really goes to kind of the mission of helping people come here and in a sustainable and positive way, and of course keep them here to make America a better place. So with that, thank you everybody for being here, for watching, for chiming in, for some of your comments. We did get I missed some of these, but we have Jose saying Alvva with a couple of hearts, so thank you, Jose. And Enrique saying way to go, Sergio, éxito. So thank you all and we had here Giovanna saying felicidades earlier on. So thank you so much for your comments and for being here. Tune in next week for another episode. And in the meantime, have an awesome weekend. Stay safe and peace out.